Detective Finn Tinnel here with a lesson on possession of controlled substances as described in Health and Safety, H&S Code, Sections 11350A and 11377, as well as the jury instructions contained in Calcrim number 2304. H&S 11350A makes it a misdemeanor to possess controlled substances such as street drugs or medicinal narcotics without a valid prescription. H&S 11377A makes it a misdemeanor to possess methamphetamine, which is commonly called meth. The corpus delicti of this crime is the crook, the defendant, unlawfully possessed a controlled substance. The defendant knew of its presence. The defendant knew of the substance's nature or character as a controlled substance, and the controlled substance was in a usable amount. Refer to the textbook and other lessons in this class on controlled substances for a description of what is included. When you complete your police report, you will need to specify which controlled substance or analog, a substance that has a chemical structure substantially similar to the structure of a controlled substance, was possessed. A usable amount is a quantity that is enough to be used by someone as a controlled substance. Useless traces or debris are not usable amounts. On the other hand, a usable amount does not have to be enough in either amount or strength to affect the user. Don't be that officer who arrests someone for residue in a baggie. You know who I'm talking about. The people do not need to prove that the defendant knew which specific controlled substance he or she possessed. The law states that two or more people may possess something at the same time, and a person does not have to actually hold or touch something to possess it. It is enough if the person has control over it or the right to control it, either personally or through another person. Agreeing to buy a controlled substance does not by itself mean that a person has control over that substance. The defendant is not guilty of possessing a controlled substance if he or she had a valid written prescription for that substance from a physician, dentist, podiatrist, naturopathic doctor, or veterinarian licensed to practice in California. The people have the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not have a valid prescription. If the people have not met this burden, the jury must find the defendant not guilty of possessing a controlled substance. The prescription defense is codified in Health and Safety Code, Sections 11350 and 11377. It is not available as a defense to possession of all controlled substances. The defendant need only raise a reasonable doubt about whether his or her possession of the drug was lawful because of a valid prescription. See People v. Moore, 2002. Examples of 11350A, 11377 HS violations include going to class with cocaine in your backpack. Showing up to court with a balloon of heroin in your pocket happens more than you think. Having fentanyl in your pants. One recommendation I make to kids is to not wear other people's pants. On occasion, our K9 has alerted to drugs, only to have them yell, "These aren't my pants." Try and elicit statements from the crook showing they had knowledge of the drugs, a necessary element of the crime. Ask questions like, "Is this what I think it is, or is this meth?" I have had cases where the crook claims that someone planted the drugs on them or left drugs in their car without their knowledge. You need to show knowledge, so do your due diligence during the investigation by asking about witness or video surveillance footage that might corroborate that story. In most cases of first arrest, the crook may qualify for a drug diversion treatment program or drug court in lieu of jail. Once they complete treatment, the case would be dismissed. Possession for personal use can be a felony in certain circumstances, such as if you have a prior conviction of a sex crime or other serious felony. When my dad was a cop, there was a just say no thing at the schools. Great advice. Detective Finn Tinnel, and that was your lesson on possession of a controlled substance.